Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition, actually, the final season of How I Met Your Mother, recapping the past. As usual, am your friendly neighborhood soda, joined by Ben, graduated to Fudge Supreme, Rainer. How are you doing? You might want to fix that, by the way. It says Judge Supreme.
Yeah, I mean,
Who's Fudge Supreme?
man. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. A little preoccupied, but doing well.
Oh, who isn't preoccupied nowadays? Well, honestly, you have good reason to be preoccupied. So, how do you feel? The final season.
Oh man, one final reason this is great. I was worried about it going into it, and when it was happening live, because I was like, oh man, how are they going to stretch out this 3 day running to a 22 episode season? But you know what? They did, and they did it well.
Yes, they did, and as everyone knows, this season did not end without controversy. But we're not here to actually really get into that. That's going to be for another time and place. I'm of the opinion I actually do enjoy the finale. And also because of this recent rewatch, it makes more sense to me because the whole thing was about timing. It really was. The whole story. Yes, it's called How I Met Your Mother, but it was never about ending up with the mother. It was getting to a place where him and Robin can end up together.
Absolutely. And you could, yeah, you kind of hinted at that in the pilot when he didn't reveal her name until like a very last scene in the pilot episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been pretty much there since the beginning. It's one of those things. It's just like how same with similar Star Wars, whatever. It didn't end how people wanted it. Now, granted, this one's a little bit different because this the whole thing is about meeting the mother. So of course, but really, it was never about that. And a lot of people, I guess, were disappointed because that's not how it didn't go how they wanted it to.
Well, there is something to be said about people building up expectations too high and, and letting those expectations rule if they like something or not.
Do you think the internet had something to do with that?
What? The internet?
Well, I mean, basically, the people get all whipped up into a frenzy about things on the internet, be it Star Wars, Marvel, this, whatever. And then when something doesn't happen the way they want it to, it just fuels the outrage. Because basically, these guys went and redid the ending just to shut those people up. Which, thank God, it's not canon.
You know what? Yeah, I do. Because look what this came out 2 weekends ago. A Snyder Cut.
That's right.
And there's so much I want to say.
Yeah, let's get into that, but let's just say that it is a very slippery slope now that we have something like that. Anyways, so let's hop into this because we're definitely going to have some thoughts. So Ben, you want to start it off?
Yeah, my number 5, Rehearsing in it.
That's on my honorable mentions.
Okay. So this one, Robin is mad at Barney because he thinks the rehearsing dinner, he thinks Robin is implying him with a rehearsing dinner as laser tag. But she keeps telling him no, but he ends up on the laser tag handcuffed. Why was he handcuffed again? I forget
So
why.
he broke into the place, the laser tag place, thinking that's where the wedding reception was going to be. So he was essentially arrested.
Yeah, and really good. And there's a side story about Ted learning how to play the piano like who is it? Liberace?
Liberace is who he's dressed as.
Oh my god. I love this episode. I love the reveal at the end. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, for sure. I said, yeah, for sure. Definitely didn't see that coming the first time.
And I love all the character callbacks we get in that final scene. That was sick. I love what Rick Brady does. And you remember?
Yeah. Where he does this, the Ebony Eyes,
Yeah,
where they're singing the song by the Crash Test Dummies.
yeah. It is a very well done episode, man. And I love the episode beginning with Marty Frank's woman by saying he had second thoughts
Oh
and
fuck!
he can't get rid of this and can't go through with this building and he wants her to move out. He even packed her baggage for her.
What a dick! This episode really, yes, he does show how much he loves Robin by the end, but it also does show how much of an asshole he is. And also all the stuff that they say in the very end after the credits about all the Canadian, that actually is all true. All those Canadian accomplishments are 100% true.
Oh, no doubt. I wouldn't have doubted it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are a really fun episode. And kind of his, I don't want to say payback because that puts a negative connotation onto it. His response to Robin's mitzvah.
Mm.
What's your number 5, Matt?
Unpause.
Oh, you go right to the heart on this, man.
Fucking A. It's only going to get better. Basically, with this one, we start off with Ted and a very pregnant mother monitoring the time between her contractions. Another one comes and it's time to go, and we realize that they are at the Farhampton Inn in 2017, so 4 years ago. And then so they flash back, and ever since Marshall arrived at the Farhampton Inn the day before the wedding, he and Lily, who were just so happy to see each other, have been on a pause on a fight they would have otherwise had concerning Marshall accepting the judgeship without first telling Lily, which affects their planned trip to Italy for Lily's dream job. Marshall does whatever to avoid being alone with Lily when he expects that she will provoke the unpause. He embarks on a new task when he and Lily are eventually alone. But Marshall knows that the pause cannot last forever and that they will eventually have to deal with the issue. Meanwhile, Barney's in a state of inebriation that neither Robin or Ted has ever seen, at a point where he is telling the truth. The whole truth and nothing but the truth. They figure that this is the perfect opportunity to learn certain things about Barney which he has long not divulged, as well learn the answer to an issue about the wedding that has been haunting Robin ever since Barney used the word bear. And Ted, the narrator, looks back from 2030 to 2017 at the Farhampton Inn to another visit he made at another critical juncture in his and his wife's life. So yeah, this is like the fight to end all fights between Lily and Marshall, and he does something at the very end of that fight that he brings up San Francisco again and just throws it in her face, and it's like, was that right?
I don't know. I remember watching this and man, is that right? I don't know. Because what she did was awful way back in season 1. But is there a statute of limitations on that?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
It's like, how long has he been holding on to that?
but did he leave because he brought that up, or did she leave because of something he said inside of that? About future children.
Yeah, and yeah, that's true. The very end of the episode, they do bring back to the children part. They do bring up a callback to actually the first season. The very last line of the episode.
What's the callback?
Ted's bringing the mother into the car to take her off, and he says, Ted reminds us and the kids about his mom's "nothing good ever happens after 2 a.m. rule," and tells his son Luke that he's the exception.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes, but back now to Barney. We find out what the hell he does for a living.
Oh, please.
Yes, which we find out stands for provide legal expulsion and sign everything. So basically, Barney is the fall guy. But what he did was he took this job to infiltrate the company while being a rat for the FBI. Get the guy that stole his girlfriend way back in season 1 in that flashback to go to jail. Yes, this was all a massive scheme to get back at this motherfucker. Yeah. Barney tells him he set up his boss and had him arrested by the FBI. It's like, what the fuck?
You know what I love about that, too? Is as they were taking the boss away, he's straightening his tie in the mirror, and he and the damn awesome song played.
That's right. Awesome! Yeah, and the guy didn't even remember him. When he first applied, didn't even remember him. Perfect.
Well, he looked different, right? He looked completely different.
Oh, how great was it at the very beginning of that flashback, seeing Barney dressed as we know him, but trying to... You seeing that old Barney creep through because he's just changed? Oh, it was great.
I love him trying to discover the word, discovering how to use the word grow.
Yeah.
That was really funny.
There's also the very end of the Marshall and Lily argument where after he brings us to San Francisco, she does storm out of the room. She calls somebody, asks to pick her up, and that actually will come back later on.
Yeah, on my list.
On my list as well. So what is your number 4?
Okay, I would say it, but it's going to be immediately present. How your mother met me.
You better fuck it, your ass is haunted. You bet your sunny Californian ass.
I'm going to come up with another one, but I didn't... Whatever.
So my number 4 is the one I just hinted at, Daisy, which I'm assuming is a punt.
Yeah, that's a punt.
Okay. What's your number 3 then?
Annabelle Isle.
Same here, actually.
You want to take it then? Be my guest.
Sure. So this is the moment we have all been waiting for, the wedding. We are half an hour outside of the wedding. So let's give me a second to bring in the plot summary. Okay. Just before the wedding, Robin is wondering whether she is making a mistake in marrying Barney. She feels that her husband should have come through for her in finding her locket. Ted, who does have her locket, has to decide what to do with it and what to tell her about it. What to tell her about it. Meanwhile, Barney is having problems writing his wedding vows. Marshall and Lily believe they are the wedding vow experts. However, Barney points out how they have not kept any of their wedding vows. Barney's point makes Marshall and Lily critically examine what they said to each other 7 years ago. In turn, they review their review of their vows helped Barney come up with his. Yeah. This was a great episode.
Yeah. I mean... And I love that we get the final snap.
That's right. We get the final snap because Barney is freaking out of the aisle and Marshall whacks him. Much deserved.
You know what, Mom? The time I knew how the show was going to end and who's the wife and who's the groom, it played out exactly like I thought it would. I knew Marshall would say one snap to zap him into calmness, so to speak.
And Robin figures out that Ted's the one who actually got the locket. And she's like, that's when she panics and is like, I should be marrying you. And Ted convinces her, like, look, no, as somebody who's been on the other end of this is not a good idea. We should not be running away together. Robin agrees with Ted that they can't run away together, so she's going to run away on her own. She scrambles toward the exit of the hotel, walking Ted into her room by himself, but trips and falls over the mother who's setting up with her band. And that's how Robin met your mother. So basically, it's the mother is the one that calms Robin down to go through with it. Really, the mother is a positive force throughout this season. She really is.
I don't want to say anything on that, but I like how the mother meets each one of the gang in this season.
Yeah.
And how that even comes back into play from something from that season, if you remember.
Mm.
Because, no, the Barney meeting the mother is what motivated him to write the final play, the
Yeah.
woman.
Yes. And after meeting the mother, and after the mother convinces her everything will be okay, Barney shows up with a big stack of house. Because it's Barney. He says the biggest, he says he admits that he has problems writing the vow, but he says the biggest problem is that Marshall didn't tell Lily the truth because he's using them as an example. So he decides to make only one vow to Robin, and he tells her this before the wedding. From this day forward, I'm always going to be honest with you because I love you. He starts to leave, but stops and tells her Ted got the locket for her, and he's the one she should thank. Steps forward and kisses Barney. We see Ted in the background turning the corner and catching this moment, reacting just for a second before turning back around the way he came. Now, fast forward to the wedding itself. Barney finally admits, in the interest of honesty, that they really do have a ring bear, and a bear walks down the aisle with a ring tied to its neck. Robin loves it, so Barney tells her she's going to love the flower gorilla. She doesn't seem happy about that, so Barney waves off the gorilla handler. Old Ted tells the kids, that was a long weekend. More ups and downs than I can count. Says the road to get there wasn't easy, and not everything since has been easy. But on that spring day, Barney and Robin vowed to love each other because love is the best thing we do. And it was legendary. And that's how it ends.
Let me ask you something. There's something I've been wondering myself. Let's say there's no truth now. And and adding one more thing to this episode of Ted meeting the mother. Would you have been satisfied if this was a series finale?
Are you talking the way it's written now?
The way it's written now, everything is in the same, except there's one more thing with Ted meeting Tracy.
I would not have been happy in that instance if this was a series finale, and I will say why. It's because there's still many loose threads that were not tied up that we got in the final episode. Ted has at this point. Ted still hasn't told anybody but Lily about Chicago, right? If I'm not mistaken.
No, everybody knows. Everybody knows.
But you haven't seen the final goodbye. You haven't seen the fact that Barney. Hey, look, you're the one that introduced me to that convinced me to go after my wife. Yeah, there's still, and of course, the meeting of the mother scene, which is I guess is the one you're referring to, attacking on the end, but still, it just wouldn't have felt complete, if that makes sense.
Okay.
If you go with the episode as is.
Okay. Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
Because we also wouldn't have gone. We're going to talk about it when we get to the finale. We also wouldn't have gone Ted seeing the mother for the first time, because it wasn't on the train dock.
Oh right, he saw him playing. Okay.
So there's still some loose threads that weren't connected. So it would have made a good series finale.
Okay, that's fair. It is something that's been on my mind. Maybe they would have made people more happy. Mm-hmm. But I think you're right. And there's too many loose ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so since we both had the same number 3, what is your number 2?
Sunrise.
Oh, that was such a good episode. It's not anywhere? Nope, nowhere.
Okay, so real quick, this is about Ted and Robin are negotiating for Mark Barney, I had to think for a second, and then have this really cute, really cathartic talk about Ted and his past relationships. Mm-hmm. Marshall is arguing with himself over his last fight with Lily, and you find out in this episode how Ted got that locket back.
Yeah. He went through hell.
Oh my God, really. And the end scene of Ted letting go of Robin shocks me up every time I see it. Like, it was, to me, I see why people get so upset at the finale because this episode. Because he finally moved on from Robin. He finally got the mother. Yeah. Okay. We'll see.
Well, we'll save it, but one thing that people do tend to forget is it's okay to find love again after your significant other dies, folks.
True. Yeah, and that's the part. And I have to keep telling myself that. Because if I forget the mother died, it can be, whatever.
We'll get in. We'll definitely get into it. We'll definitely get into it more next week for sure.
Yeah. What's your number 2?
It's the episode where the mother dies, lasts forever, the 2-part. And now I'm going to say this right now. Screw you guys who hate this ending. Like, you got to, at some point, you guys have to accept that this is the ending. It may not be what you wanted, but it was the ending. And it was a great ending because we got to see what everyone did after the wedding, where they went with their lives, what happened to Barney and Robin. Spoilers, they get divorced. What happens to Lily and Marshall? They have 2 more kids. What happens, and of course, what happens with Tracy? She passes away in the very end of the episode where the kids tell Ted, look, this whole story wasn't about how you met your mom. It's about how you're still in love with Aunt Robin. And they're okay if they go for it because they love Aunt Robin. So what does Ted do? He does what he did in the very first episode. He grabs the blue French horn and he runs and he shows up underneath Robin's window. But of course, there's more to this episode, so I digress. So, in a flashback to September 2005, Ted, Marshall, Lily, and Barney accept Robin into their group. Lily, optimistic about Robin's friendship, decrees that Ted and Barney cannot hook up with Robin unless they marry her, and Barney scoffs at the idea. 8 years later, Ted discusses his move to Chicago with Marshall and Lily at Barney and Robin's wedding reception. Meanwhile, Barney recognizes the bass player already introduced in previous episodes as the mother, as the woman who advised him to pursue Robin. He approaches Ted with the intent to introduce her to him, but Ted declines the idea. After the group, and this scene really gets to me, is when they're doing their final farewell on the balcony. Well, we know it's not the final farewell, but still. After the group sadly bids Ted's farewell, he goes to the Farhampton train station where an elderly lady asks Ted many questions about Destiny and spots the mother standing nearby. Ted insists he cannot talk to her because he's moving. The next night, Marshall and Lily are surprised to see Ted sitting at their table in McLaren's. He tells them that he met a girl of whom they approve after finding out that she's the bass player from their wedding. In 2015, Ted, now engaged, meets Robin, Barney, and McLaren's to discuss wedding ideas. As Robin goes to buy drinks, Barney admits their marriage is suffering because of Robin's rising career, which requires her to travel frequently. The mother arrives and tells Ted they have to delay their wedding because she is pregnant. In May 2016, Ted and the mother host a get-together with the rest of the gang. Marshall is miserable at his new job, having been forced to return to being a corporate lawyer. Barney and Robin reveal that after 3 years of marriage, they have divorced. The mood turns positive when Barney realizes that Marshall and Lily are expecting their 3rd child, but Lily is worried about the group breaking apart. Together, they promise they will all be there for the big moments and will remain friends. In October 2016, Marshall and Lily decide to move out of their old apartment and put together a final Halloween roof party. Robin is sad to see Ted and the mother with matching hanging Chad outfits, alongside Barney, who has returned to his womanizing ways. She decides to leave and confesses to Lily that she cannot be in the group any longer as she has outgrown them and still has unresolved feelings for Ted, which devastates Lily. Part 2. In 2018, Barney gets ready for another night at McLaren's, even though Ted and Lily, both being parents, are not intending to stay out late. Marshall arrives and announces he is replacing a retiring judge in Queens, which prompts a celebration. When Barney attempts to score with the young woman, Lily blasts him for fully regressing into his previous self. After Barney defends his behavior by telling her that he will never make it work with anyone except Robin, Lily relents, and Barney leaves to enjoy his night. In 2019, Ted, the mother, Marshall, and Lily are at Robots vs. Wrestlers. A depressed Barney shows up to say that while he recently completed a perfect month, using a new playbook, the last woman is pregnant with his child. Sometime later, Ted runs into Robin, now a famous news reporter, while showing Penny the GMB building he designed. Marshall, Lily, and Ted gather at the birth of Barney's daughter, Ellie. Despite his initial misgiving, Barney is moved to tears. And I love this scene because earlier in the episode he says, what am I going to do to some chick? Tell her, I loved you. You're gonna for the rest of my life. You're gonna have you have my heart. All this movie stuff. When his daughter is born, he repeats the exact same words to the kid, but actually means it. And it's like that right there is Barney has grown up. At Ted and the mother's house, Ted reproposes to the mother 5 years after he first proposed, and said they are getting married the following Thursday. Before the wedding, the gang meets up at McLaren's, and Marshall announces he is running for the New York State Supreme Court. Judge Supreme. Barney sees two young women at the bar and scolds them for dressing inappropriately, which genuinely surprises Lily, who's even more surprised when Robin shows up. While reconciling with the gang, Robin admits to Ted that after initially declining to come, the mother told her to reconsider. Lily gives a toast praising Ted for all he has been through and for Ted and the mother's future. Returning the story to May 2013, Ted gets the courage to introduce himself to the bass player, and she invites him underneath her yellow umbrella. To engage in a conversation where she tells Ted she remembers him on his first day as a professor and reveals her name is Tracy McConnell. Ted recognizes her umbrella as the one he had left at Cindy's, and the pair realize how they have narrowly missed meeting each other many times in their lives, before laughingly each saying hi. Their conversation continues as the train arrives. Before revealing how he met the mother, future Ted narrates how he never stopped loving her for a second, even when she became terminally ill and died in 2024. In 2030, when Ted finishes the story, his children, Penny and Luke, decide that it was actually about how he still has feelings for their Aunt Robin and give their blessings to continue their relationship with her. Ted decides to go to her apartment with a blue French horn from their first date, presenting it the same way he had 25 years earlier. Robin, who is revealed to be living alone, seems moved, and they both smile at each other. A deleted scene with Lily and Marshall confirm they become a couple. And that's the end of the series, and then we go into the last montage where they do the credits, but it's everybody from season 1, and you wow, did they look different in that pilot.
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah.
That montage at the end always gets me too. Yeah.
Just the whole episode. Because, I mean, I don't know if you have a group of friends like this. I do. And that's one thing I've noticed as we've gotten older and as kids are introduced and married. We stopped seeing each other all the time. Like when we were all living in Vancouver, it was like every weekend we wouldn't go to the bar, but we'd get together, we'd do shit, we'd go out and eat, we'd watch movies. But then people get married and people start having kids, and this is what happens. You drift apart. We're still there. We're always still in a text chain, and I guarantee you, as soon as this pandemic's over, we're going to be jumping to hug each other. But I sympathize with the last part of this episode, everything after the wedding, because it's going on my life right now.
If you were writing this episode, would you have Ted meeting Tracy at the beginning, or would you leave it at the end?
Beginning how? Like beginning of the series? Beginning of the episode?
No, beginning of the episode. So it's not like one big flashback. So you see the whole story play out just how it is. You just get the living feel earlier in the episode.
I wouldn't.
Okay.
Here's why. Because the way it plays out now, you see everything that happens, and then when you finally see the first moment when they say hi to each other, it makes it that much more sweeter.
Okay, and another question. Well, that's narration by future Ted. That's not Bob Saget. That's Josh Radnor.
Josh Radnor did the future Ted voiceover for both parts of this.
Okay. When you leave it at Josh, or when you have Bob Saget do it?
Honestly, what I would have done, as much as I love Bob Saget as narration, I would have had Josh Radnor do it from the beginning.
Well, all the way back home. It's weird. It is weird.
Bob Saget is just a big part of that show. He's definitely one of the more iconic parts. But for me, it just makes sense. Like, okay, we all know the Wonder Years did a similar thing where you had the adult Kevin narrating.
Yeah.
That works slightly different because he's narrating Kevin as a child. Whereas this, it's only 25 years, but he's narrating himself as an adult, so it would have made, for me, more sense to have Josh Radnor do it.
We may have one more kid. How that work? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like Mom Haggett, but in here and truth, I forget it's Mom Haggett sometimes.
Really?
Like, when I hear the evidence, I'm like, oh yeah, that's Mom Haggett. Anyway, should we do all honorable mentions?
Yes, I just want to leave this off. Like I did go off on people earlier, but I mean, you guys are all welcome. You can think whatever you want. Just me personally, I think it's all the hubbub that went down after this episode aired. I just think was dumb. You can be upset about it as you want, but unfortunately, it doesn't change everything. It doesn't change anything. And seriously, I do encourage everybody to go back and watch this series, and you will see that the whole thing, and I've said it throughout this recap, the whole thing is about timing.
The problem is the people who got pissed off, they're never going to watch it again.
Yeah, which is a damn shame.
Yeah.
Damn shame.
Okay, honorable mentions?
Yes, sir. So, what do you got?
What do I have? Bedtime Stories? That's the name of it. That's the name of it, right?
Nowhere on my list.
Okay. Thanksgiving 3, I'm surprised they didn't make it there.
That's on my honorable mention as well.
Oh. Reality? With the king has to wake up party?
No,
I
not on my
mean,
list.
what? And Gary Plowman.
Nope. Good episode. Not on my list, though.
Not on my list, but in my honorable mention.
I have Last Time in New York,
Okay.
Sunrise, Slashgiving 3, The Rehearsal Dinner, and Bass Player Wanted.
I should also add Satanis onto mine. And the only reason, and mainly because of Brian Cranston. It's so good to see him again. And
But it's clearly a CGI background.
yeah, and you can tell his comedic timing. You can see part of him as Hal from Malcolm in the Middle, and it's really easy for him to go in a split second to Heisenberg. And you see that in maybe a 10-second gap.
I'm gonna have to rewatch that scene because I didn't catch the Heisenberg part. I definitely caught the Hal part, that's for fucking sure.
I'll show it to you, but yeah, it's there.
So what is your number one then?
Daisy.
Yes. You take it to your number one.
Basically, it's a murder, not a murder. It's a mystery is like getting trying to find out why Neely was at the captain's. And throughout the episode, you see them pieced together.
Let's just add in the reason why she went to the captain's is because of the fight that happened in Unpause.
Right. Thank you. So, you realize by the end of the episode, at first everyone thought she was smoking again, but when you find out, she's really pregnant. And when they went and confront her about it, Marjorie said, we're going to need this, this, and this. And she said, well, why would we need that? We're staying in New York. And he says, and then I think that gets to me. He says, wait. No, we're not. We're going to Rome. You're going to give me the biggest present of marriage. So of course we moved to Rome for you and your career. And that's how the episode ends. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, Robin's mother comes back in the picture and Robin's dad and Bonnie, they have quite scary things in common.
Yeah, except Barney won't go out into the wilderness and kill people. And I don't know if I mentioned this when that episode aired, but you remember the episode where in the flashback, Robin and her dad were in a helicopter and he pushes her out into the wilderness? So they say it's in the wilderness of Smithers, BC, which is 2.5 hours away from where I live.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I will say they have some of the best cinnamon loaf you'll ever have.
Yeah. So what do you think of this episode?
It was a good episode. I mean, like mostly because of that whole detective thing that you mentioned. We got to see the great Tracy Ullman as Robin's mom, but really it was the resolution of the fight and Marshall putting his dream aside. Say, look, we don't have a big enough. Now's the time to go to Rome. You're giving me another child, which is what I want in the world. So we're gonna go live your dream. And that's what it was. It's the encapsulation of their marriage right there.
And we should bring up the post credits when we see them in Rome.
Yeah.
With Mickey, and you keep saying Marshall's mom is there too, right?
Yeah, rewatch the scene. She comes out and she speaks Italian with a thick Minnesotan accent.
Okay, I have to go rewatch this.
Yeah, you will. But yeah, she's there.
Okay. Yeah, I love this episode. I love seeing that captain again. I love seeing Butch again. What?
His new wife.
Anyway, it is a fun episode.
And did you mention what the daisy refers to? Did I miss that?
The daisy refers to a daisy plant where they found a pregnancy test.
And which is also what they named their daughter.
Right. So, Matt, I think I know your number one, but what is your number one?
I honestly don't know if I'm going to make it through this. It's the episode How Your Mother Met Me, which, spoiler alert, is my favorite episode of the entire series. This one is different because it's all about the mother. So you do see a little bit of everybody interjected in here or there, but the main focus is for us to learn who the mother is. And I'm so glad they did. In the continuing story, Ted is telling his children in 2030 of how he met their mother. He flips the story to tell them of what their mother was doing while Ted was hanging out with Marshall, Lily, Robin, and Barney over those same years. This story starts on the very same day he started his story, the day that Marshall and Lily got engaged and the day he met Robin. This day was their mother's 21st birthday, the day her then boyfriend Max, who was the love of her life and the one and only person she thought she would ever love, died. His death affected how she approached her dating life over much of the intervening time. Ted also tells them of the many close calls the two of them had in meeting, including when she, as an economics student who wanted to end world poverty, was in the classroom he thought was his classroom for his very first day as an architecture professor, and how she became roommates with Cindy, a woman who he ended up dating. The story also tells how she ended up in Farhampton at the same time as Robin and Barney's wedding, and how she ended up in... I'm going to skip this last part. I'm actually going down to the full plot summary to get the full impact of this. So while she's in Farhampton, she's staying at her boyfriend's place because he has a place in the area. She shows up and he's waiting for her there and proposes. And she... I'll be back in a second. She walks outside and tearfully speaks up to the sky to Max. And has, I guess what you could say is her final goodbye to Max. Saying she wants to move on with her life, doesn't know she should, and could you please send me a signal? And he does. So she walks back in. She breaks up with her boyfriend. So she checks in to to Farhampton Inn, and she gets to the final room, which is next to Ted's. She goes into her room, opens her guitar case, and pulls out her ukulele, which is what her birthday gift from Max was on her 21st birthday. She goes outside, sits on her patio, and strums it while singing La Vie en Rose. In a montage, we see a sad Marshall in his room, a sad Lily leaving town, a sad Robin in bed alone, a sad Barney downing a bottle of scotch. And old Ted tells us and the kids that over the years he's heard her rendition of that song 1,000,000 times, as the camera pans over from her patio to the one right next to it, separated by a wall, where Ted is sitting and listening. But that performance... that first night I ever heard her sing, that will always be my favorite. Ted walks back into his room and starts telling Barney about the voice he heard singing, but Barney is gone. That's how this episode ends. But it's her finally getting her closure and then just sitting there and singing La Vie en Rose, which is... that since that episode aired, that song has not left my iPod. That version.
It's a great episode.
It really is a great episode because they show us who the mother is, and you can't help but fall in love with her. All her dancing English muffins. Her
and,
pancakes.
and you see callbacks to references Ted made over the years, like the English muffin dance
Yeah.
and pictures of robots doing the stuff.
Yeah, it's a beautifully written episode. It is a departure because, like I said, it's the only one that doesn't focus on any of the main gang. And
You see them all. You do see them.
you see them, yes, but I mean they're not what's important in this episode. And to see all the hardship that she went through, trying to, not unbeknownst to her, trying to meet Ted, it was great. Like, this is the only episode that I bought digitally, so I can watch it whenever I want.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, with Tracy Ted's Matt, you got the ramen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that as I was saying the plot summary, for sure.
I mean,
But it is okay to have more than one love of your life.
no, of course it is.
No, I'm not saying I'm just waxing poetically here. Is really what I'm doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
I'd say if I were to meet somebody, I would love her to be like the mother, quirky, beautiful, a good person, caring. Everybody loves her. Like that's who I want. I'm still a few years away from being Ted, but yeah.
How old was Ted in season 1? Do we know?
I want to say 25.
Okay.
I might be wrong. It's on Wikipedia. Born in 78. So, yeah, he was about 27. 27 when
Okay.
the series started.
So he is 6 years older than Tracy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is there anything else you want to bring up?
Nope, that's pretty much it. Because we're going to be talking about these episodes again. So I don't want to spoil everything.
You don't want to move.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
All right.
So, what are your thoughts on the series as a whole?
That's great. I don't know what I like most. They're your friends. I have them as mine only because I can't decide between them. They're so good. Rewatching Friends and rewatching Friends, I love both of them.
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm rewatching Friends right now, and I'm far enough into the first season where I realize, as much as I do enjoy Friends, it's How I Met Your Mother all the way for me.
Yeah,
Because
maybe.
their friends are more likable.
Yeah, well, okay. And I think you want to say that they're more realistic.
That too, yes. Like, I mean, I don't know how they can afford in New York at the beginning of the show to close at a bar every night, but besides that, yes, they're more realistic.
They feel more at the right age. Like
That too.
I'm watching a friend, and they say they're 25. They don't look no 25.
No, but I mean, also the way they're depicted in the beginning of Friends, though, it is very dated. Whereas How I Met Your Mother, you could probably put them in any time, and it would work. Whereas Friends is very much a '90s show, even though it ended the year before How I Met Your Mother. Funnily enough.
Yeah, and funny enough, there's some crossover with the cats. One say who, but there's some.
You're
Not that they ever. We could.
I know not any of the big cast, but now I don't know.
Maggie Wheeler.
Oh yeah. Oh well. Okay, that's a stretch to call it a crossover, but
No, I didn't hate crossover. I just said whatever. Okay.
I don't. I'm gonna full disclosure. Never operate a forklift without proper hearing material because my hearing does not work that well as it used to.
So what do we have to look forward to next week, Matt?
Okay, so next week, kind of quite decided if it's being live or not, but it is our full series wrap up. and we'll be having some special guests on, probably 3, more likely.
Okay.
So it's going to be a good panel discussion episode. We're going to have our top 5 favorite episodes, our favorite moments. We're just going to be waxing poetically about the whole series as a whole with people who, like myself, it's their favorite TV show.
Hey, one of mine. And it might not be my number 1, but it might be in my top 5.
I'm not gonna lie. If we weren't already watching our next series, I would have rewatched How I Met Your Mother again, just without having to analyze anything, just to watch it. I might do that, bounce between the two. I don't know.
How fast can you watch a 9-season show?
Are you serious? I did it in 2 weeks.
Impressive.
Now remember, in there was 2 seasons that I watched all the way through in one day.
Right.
2 separate days. But yeah, I did it in give or take a couple days, but I did it in 2 weeks. Oh, what, 4 years ago, 5 years ago? Yeah. And that was before and that was using my DVD collections. I had to get up always to switch to this. It's much easier to do now on streaming. Which, funny enough, on Disney Plus, go figure.
Yeah. No figure. Well, yeah, no figure. Barney Stinson had any connection to Disney.
Barney Stinson is a Disney prince. We're screwed.
Oh my god. He might be like a Gaston. I don't know.
Oh god. He would have been a great Gaston.
Yeah, he would.
Oh, he would have been a great LeFou.
Yeah, he would have. He would have been a good Beast.
Ooh. Actually, I can top that. He would have been a good Aladdin.
No.
Really? You think Scott Weinger is the better Aladdin? Well.
Are you talking voice or are you talking live action?
Voice.
Then maybe Aladdin.
Yeah, I think.
I thought you were talking live action. I was like.
Oh god, no! At this point, he's old enough to play the frickin' the ruler there.
The Sultan.
The Sultan, yeah. Actually, you would have made it on Broadway. I think you would have made a good genie on Broadway.
Yeah, I mean.
He would have been able to make it his own. He would have been good.
Yeah, maybe. We could do a whole episode of casting Barney Stinson as fairy tale characters, and it would be awesome with me.
Yeah, but unfortunately we don't have the time, and we're probably never going to do that. But hey, you never know. So yes. So where can everybody find you, Ben?
They can find me at BenRaider2 every week on Television with Matthew on Tuesday, every Friday on Recapturing the Past. The show every Saturday on Get Sweaty, every Sunday on Men's Hot Takes. Been on a little bit of a hiatus, but I'm coming back. And every Saturday again on Mount Schmoedown, my Schmoedown channel, my Schmoedown show about players and careers. Matt, your turn.
All right. And myself, you can find me at Instagram, Twitter at soda_the_saxban. You can find me on this channel doing everything Ben just said. You can also find me over my other channel, Scrolls of the North, where Mount Schmoedown is currently located. Where every Friday night we go live after the matches to break down. Most of the time it's breaking down the pay-per-view, and then on Sunday we'll do the other 3 matches. But on non-pay-per-view weeks we will break down all 3 matches. Also Northern Consultations, which itself has taken a bit of a hiatus, just because we're a little bit busy in our lives. So there's that. You'd also find me on the Mighty Ducks recap show for the new series Game Changers on there, because as you can tell in the background, I'm a big fucking hockey fan. So yeah, you can definitely find me there, and you can also find me on Canadian Comic Book Corner, which is the new show Dave and I started, which is bi-weekly. We did our first episode on the Snyder Cut, and then our next episode is going to be on a book that Dave introduced to me last year, Spider-Man Life Story. A highly recommended reading, in my opinion. So with that, thank you very much for joining us through this journey, and we will definitely see you next week for our series recap of How I Met Your Mother. Everybody, stay safe and smash cancer.